Hey guys, I'm Jessica and I am here today to talk to you about writing in multiple perspectives. So before you write in multiple perspectives, you first need to think about why you're doing this. There are great reasons to write in multiple perspectives, and then there are not so great reasons. If you're doing it just to up your word count, meaning you are rewriting the same scene you've already written from someone else's perspective over and over, that's probably not going to make it into your final novel. So there are a lot of good reasons for writing in multiple perspectives. One is that you want to give your audience a full picture of what's going on. Like in the Poisonwood Bible, we hear from each of the girls' perspectives, and it provides us with a total look at what's going on in this society, this mission trip. So we have one daughter who is all for what her father's doing, looks up to him like a saint. We have one daughter who's kind of like the typical teenager who resents her family taking her from Georgia to Africa. We have the youngest daughter who is the picture of innocence. And we have another daughter who has a physical disability and is an outsider, and so we get that outside perspective from her chapters. So that works really well. If you're using multiple perspectives, it should be because you want your audience to know something that one person's perspective can't provide them. But sometimes having one perspective is ideal. I think for young adult fiction, having one perspective is important because you want your audience to think about, is what this character is presenting to me true? Is it biased at all by their emotions, their experience? Because that's how life is. You look back at your memories and you have to think about, is this really how it happened, or is this memory affected by my emotions, my beliefs at the time? So that can be a really important thing for young adult literature. Another problem that I see with multiple perspectives is their voices aren't distinct from one another. If you are writing in first person and you have more than one perspective, you need to make sure that your narration is different enough where someone could open the book to any page and understand who's speaking just from how you've written them. And I have a good way of narrowing down what makes your individual characters distinct from one another, what makes their voice different from one another. There are 4 things you need to think about. You need to think about syntax, diction, use of figurative language, and treatment of the subject matter. I have a really good guide for this that I actually used when teaching author style, and I'm going to try to figure out how to share it with you guys through Google Drive, so hopefully I have a link for that below. I think I can do it. So you can do a couple things with this guide. You can go through and make decisions for each of your characters, or you could write a scene that you feel like is 100% your character and then go through and analyze it using this same guide. What I did is I've already started writing my novel. And I feel like in the beginning I was having a little bit of trouble distinguishing one character from the other. Both of their voices sounded kind of similar. So I went through and I picked out what fits each character. So I started with syntax. Syntax is sentence structure. So you have to think about, does your character use long, complex sentences? Does he use shorter, more imperative sentences? Of course they're going to use a mix of all of these, but sometimes characters are more long-winded than others. Sometimes characters are more to the point. And I found that one thing I was doing, I was using inverted sentence order for both of my main characters, and I felt like that was more of a Gwen thing to do. So I left that with her. She might say something like, despite the fact that it was 38 degrees outside, he was wearing shorts. So I inverted the sentence order. That sounds more like her to me. Where Carter uses more of the natural order of sentences. He's more to the point, straightforward. So that's more fitting with him. The next thing you have to think about is diction, which is word choice. I feel like both Gwen and Carter use informal language, but Gwen uses words for their connotation more often than Carter. Carter can also use some technical jargon, while Gwen is more likely to use like slang. One trap that I can fall into is describing things in the same way for both characters. So I really have to stop and think about what words would Carter choose to describe this scene versus what words Gwen would use to describe this scene, because they're very different. The third thing you have to think about is figurative language. So sometimes when we're talking, we use a simile or a metaphor to compare something, or maybe we allude to something in pop culture or in a book. Maybe you use a lot of sarcasm or hyperboles or even understatements. So these are things that you have to think about with your characters also. Both of my characters use sarcasm, which is fine if they both do. I use a lot of sarcasm. This is pretty common. Gwen uses more similes and hyperboles and allusions in her language, in her descriptions of things, whereas Carter is more straightforward. Like I said before, he might use puns. I decided he's kind of modeled after my boyfriend a little bit, and my boyfriend thinks that puns are hilarious, and I thought this would be a good thing to throw in because I hate puns. And I think they're kind of annoying, which fits because I'm more like Gwen. And then you have to think about the treatment of the subject matter. How is each character looking at the story? How are they telling the story, and how do they feel about it? This is going to affect their tone, so it's very important that you decide this ahead of time or halfway through the novel like I did. Gwen's narration is more kind of off the fly, stream of consciousness, more reflective, whereas Carter's is more straightforward. He just narrates what's in front of him. I had him doing a little bit too much in the beginning of the novel, which is something I'm going to have to fix. He was sounding a little bit too much like Gwen, so I decided I wanted him to more leave you with the facts and let you make up your own mind, while Gwen tells you more of how she's feeling and what she thinks about things. I do have a third perspective, and it's a very interesting perspective, and I did go through this same process with that perspective, but I'm still working on it. So I've noticed that since I made these decisions, I've been a lot more deliberate with how I'm writing each character. I feel like their voices are already a lot more distinct from one another than they were in the beginning. And again, I said this in another video, but I chose to write in multiple perspectives because I wanted the audience to find out something before Gwen found out something, to provide a little bit of dramatic irony. And both of their stories, Gwen and Carter's, are unique, and I wanted that to come across from both of their perspectives. I didn't want to have to tell everything from Gwen's perspectives and have there be chunks missing. And time will tell if this was the right decision, but for now, this is what I'm doing, and I'm feeling pretty good about it, so I'm gonna keep doing it. There's no use in changing anything right now. So if you feel like this is something that would help you, check out the link down below to find the guide. I have just like a quick guide for each of the 4 steps. Thank you guys for watching. Remember to like the video and subscribe if you would like to, if you haven't already. And I will see you again later.